Okay, here we go. Okay, we are live right now. Let me just post this on Twitter here. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay, how's everyone doing? I hope everyone's having a great weekend here. Oh, hey, Steve. Thank you for sponsoring my channel for a year and a half. I do appreciate it, man. Just invite me to the business location.
I gotta post this online.
What the? NPC drivers. How much we need for this update? I don't think you're gonna need a lot of money for this update. I'd say if you have at least $20 million, you're probably good with 20 million. So that's what I'll say. Hey, Pro, I'm really enjoying Kane and Lynch 2. I don't understand all the hate I've seen that game get. Yeah, the problem with that is that a lot of the people that base their opinions on that Kane and Lynch 2 sucks, they based it off of reviewers. That's pretty much what it was. They haven't actually played the game themselves or actually seen an entire playthrough of it. That was the that was the thing, is mostly the people that hated on Kane and Lynch, it was just that people just like watched the reviewers, they didn't even play the game, even see how the game, you know, runs, or any of that stuff. There are legitimate things to complain about in Kane and Lynch 2. Like, I think the biggest complaint about Kane and Lynch 2 is that the story's too short. It's like 4 hours long. The second game is nearly, you know, the first game is nearly double the length of the first game in the story. Another thing that's a legitimate criticism is oh, well, this spawned in a weird area. The ending was very abrupt. I think we can agree on that. But when I hear reviewers complaining about the shaking camera, they're like, oh, the shaking camera is annoying and stuff like that, they're stupid. And the reason that they're stupid is because you can turn the shaking camera off in the options. But whenever I watch these reviewers, they never talk about that you can turn the shaking camera off in Kane and Lynch 2. The whole reason the shaking camera was there in the first place, it was meant to simulate what running was like in combat. Because, you know, when you're sprinting and, you know, people are shooting at you and stuff like that, not everything is going to be, you know, perfectly even. It's going to shake, you know, shake a lot. There's shaking. So that's pretty much what it was meant to simulate. The game focused a lot on realism. That's what Kane and Lynch 2 did. That's the whole reason the shaking camera was there. I can understand why people don't like it, because it makes some people feel nauseous and stuff like that, but it's you can turn it off in the settings. And the fact that the reviewers don't even mention that and just attack the game over it, I think is just a really stupid thing to do. Oh, happy birthday, William. Yeah, well, Lynch, I think, was completely justified in what he did to Shanxi. I wouldn't have trusted him, Victor. Thank you for the super chat. It's my friend's birthday. I just got a plat in Spider-Man first one in pro streaming. Man, it feels so damn good today. Well, thank you, Blinded Eagle, and say happy birthday to your friend for me. Yeah, well, they're probably not going to make Kane and Lynch 3. It's probably not going to happen. It's been 13 years since the last game, even though I would love another Kane and Lynch game. But the Kane and Lynch 3, before Kane and Lynch 3 got canceled, it was supposed to take place in a South American country. That's where the next game was supposed to take place. It wasn't Venezuela, because Venezuela was in the first game. I think it was going to be Colombia. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was the third game was supposed to be set in the South American country. Okay, let's get up here. Thank you, Josh, for the super chat. Best money methods right now? You have all the businesses running. You know, buy supplies for MC businesses, have your nightclub producing, buy supplies for the bunker, and then in the meantime, just run Cayo Perico in between. Probably the best way to make money in this game right now. Yeah, we could do a casino heist later. I'm down for that. Do you know Morse code? No, I don't. I know what Morse code is, but I don't know how to translate it. Yeah, Sleeping Dogs 2 was supposed to come out too, but Sleeping Dogs 2 was supposed to be called Triad Wars. Hope you're having a good day, professional. I am. Thank you, man. Did Nico ever find out about Bulgarin's death? I think there's a news article, isn't there a news article in GTA 4 that says that Bulgarin died? So Nico would eventually see that too. And Nico would realize that Bulgarin's not coming after him, so yeah, I think he would eventually find out about that, Victor. Thank you. And thank you, Blinded Eagle. When I had that thumbnail from Expert Thief as my wallpaper, they said it was violent because it had the GTA logo and there were 0 guns whatsoever. Well, thank you for the super chat. Schools can be a bit, schools can be a bit dumb. I remember that when I was in middle school, I remember one of my classmates, he had a Resistance Fall of Man wallpaper, that was a PS3 game that came out at the time, and he got sent to the office saying that was inappropriate, which, who really cares? It's just a wallpaper. It was just a video game wallpaper. That's all it was. It wasn't anything, nefarious. Yeah, schools can be a bit ridiculous with some of their policies. Can you speak fast? Well, I mean, I do on a lot of when I tell my stories, I do speak fast. No, but I know Sekiro. No, I didn't, Brandon. Huang Li can very much appear in the other GTA games. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. Why are you in a suit? I mean, I always tend to dress up for my streams and my playthroughs. I have seen your past Kane and Lynch 2 playthrough of yours 6 years ago. It just popped up on my recommended feed. How nostalgically ironic. Well, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, that was one of the first playthroughs I ever did on my channel a long time ago. Is doing Cayo Perico constantly considered grinding? Yeah, it is. I mean, grinding, a lot of times when people grind in this game, they pretty much do the same activities over and over again. So as long as somebody isn't doing a money glitch or anything like that, it's, perfectly fine to grind whatever you want. I love how you play games that can be demonetized. Yeah. Do you know half of my Kane and Lynch 2 playthrough got demonetized? It already happened. The first part got demonetized, part 1, and the torture part, that part, got demonetized too. So that torture mission. So it was, but yeah, this one, the fact that I have Chinese army in the title, that might get demonetized just for that too. So I guess we'll see. But I play games on my channel regardless of whether they get demonetized or not, because I like them. When I played, and thank you for that super chat, Jonathan, but do you know what game I played that I made no money on whatsoever, 0, but I still did the entire playthrough? The Sopranos. The Sopranos, that game, almost the entire playthrough got demonetized, the whole thing, and I tried to appeal it every time and it got rejected. So literally all of my Sopranos videos, pretty much every single one of them had gotten demonetized. I think there's only one or two that are monetized, but the vast majority of them have gotten demonetized. And the Sopranos videos either got demonetized for 2 reasons. They got demonetized for foul language, or they got demonetized for copyright. Because there's just so much music in that game, it's ridiculous. And even when I mute a lot of the music in the game, there's still some songs that I forgot about, and they still appear in the video. And I tried to edit them out afterwards, but it just didn't work. And so that was just, yeah. The worst part is the club. When you're inside the club in the game, there's just so much music that's constantly playing and you can't turn it off. Thank you for the pickup. It should instead be made if someone gets demonetized and it shows a timestamp. You shouldn't be able to put ads in those parts that got struck. Yeah, I agree with you, but it's not that the video got struck. The video just got demonetized as not being advertiser friendly. It's not a strike, so you can pretty much get as many of those as possible when it gets demonetized, but you just can't get too many strikes, or your channel can get deleted if that happens. But yeah, it was That's okay, Skippity. Skippity, I'll help you with 4 businesses if that's fair. Because I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna help people with 4 businesses, and then I move on to the next person. I think that's the fairest that I can do. So I just help everybody with 4 businesses each. That way I can help as many people as possible. Hey, Caliber, thank you for the super chat. I will do a Hell Let Loose stream sometime later in June. I could do that. Probably. But do you know what the most frustrating thing about it is? When videos get demonetized for like foul language and stuff like that, like YouTube refuses to tell you where it got demonetized. Like they won't give you a timestamp. They won't tell you what specific part of the video is the part that caused the video to get demonetized. You guys remember like last year when I posted that video, the top 10 good and honorable things that CJ has done? That video, I spent like a month working on that video, the top 10 good things that CJ has done, like a big lore video. I think it's like nearly an hour long. And what happened is, YouTube demonetized the video for foul language. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And like the video got up to like 40,000 views. So it got to like 40,000 views in just like in just a few days. And then the second that it got demonetized, it just stopped getting views. It just stopped. It would only maybe it was going up like a few thousand views every day, but when it got demonetized, it only started getting like 100 views a day. And that's to show you that when videos are monetized on YouTube, they're much more likely to get recommended, where YouTube says, no, that's not true, but it is. I've seen it happen. Monetized videos are much more likely to get recommended than demonetized videos. And so I went back and forth with YouTube. I tried to ask them, why did this video get demonetized? And they kept telling me it violated foul language. I'm like, what foul language? And I said, if I'm going to make a lore video on characters in Grand Theft Auto, of course they're going to curse. It's Grand Theft Auto. This is not a kid's game. We already know that. But the thing is, I'm not cursing. That's the important thing. Me as a YouTuber, I'm not dropping F-bombs. I'm not cursing in my videos. So when characters curse in a game, I'm not going to censor them. I'm not going to, do beep, beep, beep every time, because that's going to be stupid. That's going to make any kind of, GTA video look dumb. So I don't do stuff like that. So when the characters curse in their cutscenes, there's nothing I can do about that, and that's, I just leave it as it is. But YouTube refused to tell me what it was, what the word was, why it got demonetized, and eventually after going back and forth with YouTube for like a week or two, they finally got back to me, and they finally answered me what part of the video got demonetized. And I thought it was a word that CJ said. I thought it was something that CJ said, but it actually wasn't triggered by what CJ said. It was actually a word that Kent Paul said. So Kent Paul in San Andreas, he actually says a word in a cutscene, and that actually got the whole video demonetized because of that. I didn't even realize it was because of that. It was a single word that caused like a nearly an hour-long video to get demonetized. And what happened was I told YouTube, if I if I just mute this part of the video, because I can still mute that part of the video when the video is up, can you remonetize the video? And YouTube says, no, our decisions are final. So even if you mute this part when this guy's cursing, the video's still going to be demonetized. I'm like, that's stupid. I already muted the part. So what I literally did was, I just said, you know what, screw this. And I deleted my video. And what I did was I just re-uploaded my video, and I just deleted that 1 second. I literally deleted just 1 second from the video because there's only one word that Kent Paul said. So like that was it. If you're wondering what word it was, I'm not gonna say because then this stream is gonna get demonetized. But it's in that mission where you have to save Kent Paul and Macker in the desert. So when they're in the desert, knocked out, that's when CJ said that it's in that mission. That's what triggered it. And so, yeah, that was, I re-uploaded the video, and I cut out that 1 second, and the video was monetized, and it never got demonetized. And I explained in the video, like, at the beginning of the video, why I had to re-upload this, because, like, I never do re-uploads. That was, like, the only time I ever did a re-upload, and I explained why, because I worked for this video for, like, a month, and I was really hoping to, get some ad revenue from it, because I worked really hard on the video. And just for it to get demonetized like that, it was just stupid, over just one word. But yeah, that was pretty much. Most people were understanding. Most people were just fine with me re-uploading the video, and some people even rewatched the video a second time, which I really appreciated. So it was just a really stupid thing that I went through with YouTube in that regard. But I haven't had a lore video demonetized in like a year, thankfully. But if a lore video gets demonetized, that really hurts me. It does, because lore videos are the bulk of my channel. That's where most of my views come. So when I get a lore video demonetized, that really hurts my channel.
I'm so ready for the weekend. I'm tired.
Okay, let's get over here and. Okay, 2 out of 4. Let me see here. If it missed a bunch of comments. Oh, thank you, Anna Wack. Thank you for sponsoring my channel again. I remember you. Thank you, Caliber, for that super chat. Thank you, Game and Ink. I made a video showing my knife collection, and YouTube took it down for no reason. Luckily, they accepted my appeal. It's still annoying how that happens. Yeah, that's really dumb. I don't get why YouTube does that. YouTube does that to gun channels also. There's like a lot of firearms channels that YouTube just starts demonetizing the videos right away. I don't know why they do that either. You know, these channels, they're very familiar with firearms. They're experts on firearms. They're not using firearms in a careless manner. They're doing it in a controlled environment. They know what they're doing, but still, their videos get demonetized. I think that's stupid. I think if anything, it should be up to the viewers to decide whether the video is appropriate or not. Not the not like just some random guy from YouTube supports like, oh, flag demonetized. That's just dumb. That's just dumb. Hey, Pro, just curious, have you seen the Elvis biopic that came out last year? What's your thoughts on it? I have no idea what you're talking about, Chryslin. I know who Elvis is, but I don't know what you're asking me about specifically. It's the first time I'm hearing about this. Thank you for the super chat. I'm having a good Sunday RPG gameplay. How are you, man? Yes, I actually got struck. When I played Call of Duty World at War, YouTube actually gave me a strike, not just demonetizing, they actually struck me, saying that the video was violated harmful and brutal content, which I don't understand how exactly. It's a video game. It was. Thank you, Anowak. Hey, Mr. Waifu. Is the new jet gonna be a counter to the Oppressor Mark II? Not really, because the reason that the jet, and I'm gonna make a video tomorrow talking about a few things, about the update, but the jet is not going to be a counter to the Oppressor Mark II. It's not going to be, and the reason it's not going to be is because even though this new jet, sure, it might be able to dogfight and take down Oppressor Mark IIs. Think about it this way: it's the spawn time. How fast can you spawn a Mark II? Just go into MC menu, run 1 block away, spawn it. If you want to spawn the plane, you're going to have to spawn it as a personal vehicle, and so you're going to have to, like, go to specific locations, drive over there, and get into it, and it takes, like, a minute to take off in those aircraft, too, where the Oppressor, you can just take off right away. So by the time, you know, somebody will be able to easily get on the Mark II, you won't have enough time to get in the jet in time, unless you're in it beforehand. So no, I don't really think it's going to be a counter. And the thing about this is, whatever is going to be a counter to the Oppressor Mark II cannot break the game more. It can't, because I've heard people say, that you know, we need a new vehicle that can take down the Oppressor Mark II. But think about it this way. Just think about this really carefully. Can you invite me to the next business, by the way? Think about this. If you have a vehicle, right, that can easily blow up an Oppressor Mark II, why would that be a problem? Can anybody tell me why that would be a problem? I think most people in the chat would know why that would be a problem. Why would it be a problem if there's a vehicle that could easily blow up the Oppressor Mark II? And I'm not a fan of the Oppressor Mark II, by the way. I hate it. Thank you, JD. Shang-Chi would have dealt with Kane and Lynch personally if he cared about his daughter. He probably would also torture them more mentally. Yeah, well, Shang-Chi is a, Shang-Chi was just one of the scariest characters I've ever seen. Because it'll be the next OP vehicle. Perfect. People are answering it. People gave the right answer right there. So yeah, just think about this. If you added a vehicle, right? Like a new vehicle, and that new vehicle was able to easily blow up Oppressor Mark IIs, that vehicle will be the new Griefer's vehicle. So the thing about this is adding more militarized vehicles to counter other militarized vehicles isn't the solution, because all it's going to do is it's going to make the problem worse. I don't have any problem with the jet. The jet I'm fine with. I don't think that's really going to be an issue. But I'm talking more about vehicles like the Oppressor. Like, if you add something that could, like, on the ground that you could spawn that could easily blow up the Oppressor, that's going to be the next thing that everybody's going to grief in. So the solution isn't to add a vehicle that can counter the Oppressor Mark II. The solution would be to actually do something about the Oppressor Mark II itself. One person said the XM25 Airburst could counter the Oppressor Mark II. That's like that rifle that fires explosive rounds, or the grenade launcher, right? I think I know what you're talking about. But if they actually added that, that would only work in an auto-aim server. We're playing free aim, so, you know, you can't really lock onto Mark IIs. Yeah. That would, I am having a good day. Oh yeah, I agree, and thank you, Ender, for that super chat. I would agree with you. I wouldn't mind removing the Oppressor Mark II. I make it no secret that I'm no fan of the Oppressor Mark II. Even if people hate me for saying that, that's fine. That's my opinion. I don't like the Oppressor Mark II. I personally think it should be removed from the game, but that's never going to happen. I can't picture Rockstar removing it from the game. If anything, you know, what Rockstar is going to... Rockstar might do is they might maybe make more patches on it in the future, but they're definitely not going to remove it. I can't see them doing that. You think Rockstar would do a Michael DLC? Yeah, and a Michael DLC might actually be the final DLC, so they might actually do that. Yeah, railguns exist in real life, Blinded Eagle, and thank you, Chryslin. Look, about the Oppressor Mark II, what I've always... Oh, thank you for the 18,000 KC, you didn't have to, but I appreciate it. Here's what I'll say about the Oppressor Mark II, right? Here's my solution. Here's what I would do. If I was in charge of Rockstar, if I could do something about the Oppressor Mark II, I would probably want it to be removed from the game. But if I can't do that, what I would do to personally balance the Mark II, and I think this is something that everybody could pretty much agree with, what I would do, tell me if you guys like my solution. What I would do about the Oppressor Mark II is I would make it so that it still keeps the missiles, but what happens is the missiles can only lock on to NPC cars, like hostile NPCs and police. That's it. So people that use the Oppressor Mark II for grinding can still use it for grinding. It can take down NPC vehicles with it. But you can't lock on the player vehicles on it. Take the player lock off vehicles. If you do something like that, you know, it's actually going to take a lot more skill to use it, because people are actually going to have to manually aim the missiles if they want to hit you. And most griefers are just really stupid, and they suck at the game, and they can't manually aim, so they have to rely on lock-ons. So that's what I would say is, you know, that would probably be the best solution, would be doing something like that. That's what I would probably think. It would keep everyone happy. I'm not ignoring you, Big Smoke. There's just a lot of people that are posting, but I think that would probably be the best solution. When using the Mark II, the player targeting priority should be permanently set to attackers. That way you can grind and still defend yourself. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Mark, for the super chat. I mean, technically, yeah, but the thing about that is that I don't know. I don't know if I would agree with that. I think the better solution would be to just make it so the missiles can't lock on the player vehicles. Because think about it this way. Think about it if I'm in the same lobby as my friend, right? And like my friend is across the map, right? And some guy comes out of nowhere with an Oppressor Mark II trying to blow up his cargo, and just starts firing at him. I'm not in his CEO or MC, but I come over and like try to stop that, and the griefer is just firing manually at that time. And then I try to stop the griefer. The game will see me as the attacker and will give him automatic lock-on. So that's why I can see something like that can also personally, you know, not go well in the end. So I think, you know, the best solution would be just to take the missile lock off of players, just so player vehicles you can't lock onto. But the thing about this is, whenever I say the whenever I criticize the Oppressor Mk II, I have a lot of people that I notice in the comments on my videos, and they say like, oh, you know, professional, I'm not a griefer. I just use the Oppressor Mk II to grind. Why should I be punished for what griefers do? You know, I seen comments like that. But the thing about this is my solution would still help everybody, because with my solution, you could still use the Oppressor Mk II to lock onto NPC vehicles, NPCs and cops, and it would still help you with grinding. You just wouldn't be able to lock on the players. So if somebody's using it for grinding, I don't see why that person would be upset that you can't lock on the players. If somebody's still upset that you can't lock on the players, that's telling me that they plan on killing players. So that's what I'll say about it. But what do you think, Mark? Do you think that could also, You're the reason GTA is dead. With your complaints, you're the reason EWO is gone. Well, with that name, Cargo Griefer, you know, I can't really take you seriously, personally. I want to thank you, Phoenix, for the super chat. I wanted to share this with everyone. Xbox is dead at this point. Redfall is a joke of a game. Phil Spencer didn't seem to care. Check out Ackman's video. That was that game that about fighting the vampires, right? I heard that it really sucked. But wow, they really messed up on Redfall. What car would you like to see get added? I don't know. Well, what's your Twitter, Anoek? No, you're not. You're not, Mr. Waifu. Everyone can play on whatever console they want. Look, here's the thing about this, guys. I am a PlayStation guy. I personally prefer PlayStation. That's my console. But I have nothing against the Xbox. Nothing. I have nothing against people who play on Xbox. I have an Xbox One. I don't have an Xbox Series X, but I have an Xbox One. I just personally like PlayStation because most of my friends are on PlayStation. I grew up with PlayStation. That's just personally why I prefer PlayStation. But I have nothing against Xbox. And I'll tell you something, you know, Xbox does do some things better than PlayStation. And this is me saying as a PlayStation guy. What do I think Xbox does way better than PlayStation? Backwards compatibility. You know, PlayStation players have been asking for backwards compatibility for years and years, and Sony has refused to do anything about that. You know, Sony maybe added a few PlayStation 1 classics that you could play on, like, the store and a few PS2 classics, but that's it. Like, you know, there's, like, on the Xbox, there's a lot of discs that you can put in. Like, Mercenaries Playground Destruction is my favorite, you know, Xbox game. Mercenaries POD. And it's on the original Xbox. And I can put the original Xbox disc into the Xbox One and play Mercenaries POD. And I can have a lot of fun with that. So, like, and not only that, but, like, you know, the games, I think, have a higher frame rate when you play them backwards compatibility, and I think they will have HD, because, like, a lot of these games were made for 720p in the first place, so they look a lot better. Like I was watching this video of this guy that was playing GTA 4 on the Xbox, Xbox Series X. He was playing GTA 4 backwards compatible, and when I was watching it, it looked like, I thought it was PC gameplay at first, because it looked better than PS3 gameplay, but then there were some things that looked a little weird to me. And I was like, I asked the guy on his channel, I'm like, hey, is this you know, PC gameplay? He's like, no, this is Xbox. And then he was explaining to me that with Xbox backwards compatibility, that, like, you know, the textures look a little bit better, and, you know, better HD and all that other stuff. So that's why, you know, Xbox Series X version, you know, GTA 4 playing backwards compatibility looks a lot better than PS3 version. So I wish that PlayStation had something like that. I wish that PlayStation had, like, an option where I could just do backwards compatibility. Like, I'd like to play Killzone 2 and 3. I wish I could play that backwards compatibility. But I'm not going to be doing this PlayStation Now thing. I'm not going to be streaming a game that I already own. You know, I wish I could play some of these, you know, old PS3 games, like, backwards compatibility, too. So, yes, when it comes to that, Xbox is beating PlayStation in terms of backwards compatibility. Xbox isn't winning the overall, console, I don't want to call it console war, but more console competition. But Xbox is beating Sony in backwards compatibility. They definitely are, and this is me coming from somebody who's a PlayStation fan. So that's Oh yeah, Buffalo is a lot easier to get around in than in New York City. Let's see here. Sure, PlayStation might have some really cool exclusives, but, you know, Xbox is just a bigger selection of games that you can play backwards compatibility. The DLC drops on June 13th. Why does my chat keep glitching? I don't know. Like, do you guys see that occasionally when there's like one comment that's constantly at the bottom of the screen? It's like the same comment. Usually refreshing the comment page, you know, usually fixes that for me. I don't know why that, you know, why that's been happening lately. Yeah, so I guess I'm not the only one. So like, yeah, like comments keep and the person, whoever's comment gets glitched out, that person isn't spamming. It's just that occasionally some random YouTube comment gets chosen. I don't know why, by the glitch, and that same comment keeps popping up over and over again. But the person's not posting the comment again. It's just YouTube's just showing the same comment again. I don't know why that keeps happening. Yeah, so this, when you keep seeing the same comments pop up, just refresh it. That fixes the problem. Rockstar should give NPCs Leone shotguns to troll people. No, Glover, don't give them any ideas. Imagine the Doomsday heist, but the Avon's, you know, clone army has nothing but Leone shotguns. Huh. I still can't get past the final mission on GTA 4 on my Xbox. Yes, that's a glitch. I heard about that. That's a glitch where it's when Nico jumps in the helicopter and he can't pull himself up. I know what you're talking about. Did I watch the Ace Attorney anime? I did, yes. I thought the English dub was better than the Japanese sub. I like the voice actors for the English dub a lot. I personally feel like in the Japanese sub of Ace Attorney, I feel like they got Maya's voice right, but I feel like they got Phoenix's voice wrong, like just his voice in the Japanese sub, because Phoenix's voice in the Japanese sub in the Ace Attorney anime is like so deep, and I can't picture his voice being that deep. Like I can. Like he's like a, you know, he's like a nervous, like, you know, just college graduate, like new lawyer. That's pretty much what he is, and so I can't imagine him having this really deep voice. His English dub is more of like what I would imagine his voice would sound like. See here, sentry bots with only spaz 12 and a hatchet.
Looks like you sold out.
What games am I playing next? Medal of Honor Frontline on June 6th. Gonna do a nice playthrough of that, because June 6th is the anniversary of the Normandy landings. No problem. Glad I can help, Skippity. Okay. No, I like Japanese people and Japanese culture. I'm just saying that sometimes in anime, in my personal opinion, sometimes like the English dub, I should say, sounds sometimes better than the Japanese, you know, sub. Sometimes the Japanese sub is better than the English dub. I guess it all comes down to personal preference. But that was just my point. Do you think the new jet will have explosive cannons? I should ask that in the poll. You know what? I'm gonna ask that in the poll. I'm really curious what people actually think about that. Let's see. One moment here. Let's make a poll on this right now. Should the new fighter jet in the GTA Online San Andreas Mercenaries DLC have explosive cannons? Let's see what people vote.
Okay, we're attempting
adopting some discretion here and pretending we're the Postal Service. Got it? Okay. The product's loaded and ready for delivery.
I put 3 choices. Okay, so I put up the poll just now. I'll post up. I've beaten GTA 4 10 times now. GTA 4 is a classic. It's, you know, I personally think it's the best GTA game. No, I can't picture it being more expensive than a laser. It's probably gonna be 2 to 3 million. Thank you, JD. And thank you, RIP. Thank you, bro. Do you think the GTA 6 should also drop on PS4, Xbox One? As controversial as this might sound, no. I think that GTA 6 should only be on PS5 and Xbox Series X and PC. The reason? Because if GTA 6 comes out on PS4, right, and Xbox One, it's not going to utilize the full power of the game. It's going to basically be a PS4, Xbox One game ported to, you know, PS5 and Xbox Series X. And so we're not going to be able to utilize the full power of the consoles. I mean, when you really think about it, GTA Online is GTA 5, this game that we're playing right now. This is not a PS5 game, when you really think about it. This is a PS3 game that got remastered for the PS4 with first-person mode, and then it got remastered again on PS5 with 60 FPS. So this is really, this entire map, these vehicles, everything, this was designed primarily for a PS3 game. And so that's why I think the next GTA should be designed primarily for the PS5 and Xbox Series X. I know not everybody has a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, I get that, but GTA 6 is not going to come out until probably like another year or two. So it's not going to come out anytime soon. So by then, I think more people will probably have next-gen consoles, but that's just my personal opinion, is I think it should only release on next-gen consoles because of the fact that it would be, you know, held back to, you know, PS4 and Xbox One standards if it... Am I going to do a playthrough Ghost Recon Wildlands? Yes, I will. Ghost Recon Wildlands is technically a crime game, which I do crime games mostly on the channel. So even though you're playing as the Special Forces against the cartel, it's still technically a crime game. So I'm gonna definitely play Ghost Recon Wildlands. But if I do a Ghost Recon Wildlands playthrough, get ready to see some of my best cosplay yet, because I'm gonna have some really cool, fancy military outfits on that part when I do a playthrough of that. What are you screaming for? I'm just driving a post-op van here. Okay. Okay. What's coming in the month of June, bro? SOCOM 2 and Medal of Honor Frontline. And the GTA update. Good thing I know a lot of shortcuts here. About to deliver here. The DLC is DLC I think is coming to PS4 still, yeah. Is it? I think it's still. They still update PS4, right? Or has PS4 updates, have they stopped yet? I'm sorry, I'm just losing my track. I know PS3 updates stopped years ago, but PS4 still gets updates? Yes, I think PS4 still gets updates, yes. So it's, okay. Okay. What are my opinions on Capitale? Oh man, Capitale killed Reddit Online. My favorite line is when you walk in on Joe and he's like, "Got your stinking Capitale." That's like my favorite line. Italian only understands one thing, Capitale, and you ain't got enough. He says that too. Hey, Mr. Waifu. Sure, Riley. I have to help Lloyd with just 3 more sales, but I can help you after. No, Don Percival is not dead. He could appear in this DLC. I highly doubt it, but he still could appear, because Don Percival is the leader of Merryweather. Well, at least we're not gonna have to deal with this, this mission afterwards. I've played them, not on the channel before. I played Metal Gear Solid 2. I played the original Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1 a little bit, and I played a little bit of Metal Gear Solid 4, but I didn't really, get far in them. Metal Gear Solid 2 is the only one I beat, Elijah. Okay, look at this. I finished my post-op sale in 9 minutes. That's record time for finishing a post-op mission. Ace Combat Zero and Day? Sure, I could. Pro, what are things you like and dislike in crime games? What I like about crime games is when they're very dark and they focus a lot more on realism. What I don't like about crime games is when they go way too over the top. Like, I don't have a problem with doing some crazy action scenes in games, but I just don't like it when they go really, really over the top. When I'm saying like Saints Row 3, like Saints Row the Third, like that style, I don't like that at that point. It's still better, much better than Saints Row Reboot. That was the worst. But I just don't like it when they go like really over the top. Alien tattoo you get after 600 post-op. Are you being serious? Is there actually a tattoo for that? No, Mr. Waifu, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And look, Saints Row the Third is not a bad game. Neither is Saints Row the 4, but they're just not Saints Row games in my opinion. That's just what I personally think. One moment here. Hold on, everyone. I gotta get my charger. Sorry, everyone. Second. Okay. What's that, Art? Yeah, Volition really messed up Saints Row. They did. I think the worst part about Drug Wars is the fact that Friedlander survived. I think that was the worst part about it. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the AEF D-Day, 1944. Wait, which one is that? Is that from Glover? Well, I'm only doing Medal of Honor Frontline. Is that in Medal of Honor Frontline? Drug Wars basically Rise of Skywalker, but GTA. Yeah, that story was not well written. Yes, my birthday is actually in 3 days. Yes, we'll do a stream then.
And we have a sale. Digital assets.
Pro, please answer. Do you remember me, GD? Maybe. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people that come into my comment section. Oh, Dwight D. Eisenhower speech on D-Day. Oh, okay, Glover. Could you remind me though, GD?
All right, these drops are only accept.
Hey, Fernando. My birthday is June 30th. Well, happy early birthday then, Eric. Enter a plane. Okay. Well, it's taking a bit of time for that bike to spawn. Okay, can't really wait for that. Took too long at this point. Thank you, Andrew, for sponsoring the channel. Thank you, man. You should eat at a fancy restaurant. Nah, I don't really, you know, I don't really eat at many restaurants. What's your opinion on Lend-Lease during World War II? Are you talking about how the U.S. gave aid to the Soviet Union during World War II? Well, the Lend-Lease wasn't just for the Soviet Union, it was to a lot of countries, but the Soviet Union was the one that received the bulk of it. I think it was generally a good thing. You know, they helped them to defeat Nazi Germany, but what I will say also is that, about the Lend-Lease, is that Stalin himself admitted when World War II ended that without the Lend-Lease, that the Soviets wouldn't have been able to defeat the Germans. And what happened is, then like a few years after that, he said that he never said that when he did. And then like Soviet propaganda downplayed it, that it was like a massive amount of help, but it was. You know, the U.S. gave them hundreds of jeeps, tanks, weapons, you know, food, medicine. You know, this is like, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment that, you know, that helped them a lot. But yeah, the thing, what I really don't, oh yes, I know about that, Kay. It was really bad. Yes, a lot of people were murdered by them. And then, what was his name? Pavlich? I think that was the guy, the collaborator with Hitler. I think that was his name. But do you know the thing that, you know, let's say the anniversary of D-Day is coming up in 2 days, and I'm gonna do a Medal of Honor Frontline on that. But do you know what I'll say about this is, like, speaking of the Lend-Lease, you know, one thing that really gets me irritated is like when people like say, like, you know, certain countries will say like, oh, you know, we won World War II and stuff like that. Like, you'll hear the Soviets or the Russians, they'll say like, we won World War II, and they act like the whole thing wasn't a team effort. You know, defeating the Nazis was a team effort. Not one single country could have done it. So if it was just the Soviets versus the Nazis, I highly doubt that the Soviets would have been able to win if it was just them versus the Nazis and there was no one else. So it was a team effort. There were so many countries that participated in it. You know, you had Poland, and then you had the Polish resistance, the Polish underground, Polish government in exile. You had Britain, you had France, and French government in exile, French resistance, Czechoslovakian resistance, Czech government in exile, the United States, the Soviet Union. There's just so many countries, Belgium, the Netherlands. You know, it goes on. You know, you have, you know, half of Italy that was on our side also in the war. So there was just so many countries that was like a massive team effort, and so I really don't like it when, like, you know, somebody will say that it was a Soviet victory or it was like an American victory. I don't like that. I don't. It was an Allied victory. It wasn't a Soviet or American victory. It was an Allied victory. It was everybody together was what it was, and the fact that I heard like a lot of Russian people they'll say, for example, that the majority of the Nazis were on the Eastern Front, which, okay, you can make that argument, but do you not think that all the battles that were on the Western Front and the ones that were in North Africa and in Italy, you don't think that those took away Nazis that would have been on the Eastern Front to fight the Russians? So those Allied fronts on the Western side actually helped the Russians tremendously because it took pressure off of them, because Hitler had to send other battalions to the West to fight the Allies there. So that did help tremendously. You know, Stalin was the one who was begging for a second front to be opened. So that was so there's a lot of people that, like, you know, they'll distort history and they'll say like it was an American victory or a Soviet victory, but like I said, it was a team victory because everybody working together is what stopped the Nazis and defeated the Nazis. And so, you know, whenever I hear like a Russian guy will say that like, oh, you know, we won World War II all by ourselves and stuff like that, well, you know, an American could make that exact same argument, but for Japan, saying that America defeated Japan. So, you know, America was the largest reason that the Japanese Empire collapsed, but even America alone didn't defeat Japan. It was still a team effort. You know, you had China, that was the Republic of China, that was fighting against Japan. You had resistance in Korea, in Taiwan. You had, you know, the British that were helping in the Burma campaign. You had a lot of Australians that were also helping to fight the Japanese. So a lot of people are also fighting the Japanese. But, you know, a lot of people tend to ignore that too. So the U.S. only joined because of Pearl Harbor. The U.S. joined because of Pearl Harbor at the time, true, but the U.S. would have eventually got involved in the war. It would have eventually happened. But yeah, it was at the time that the U.S. didn't expect Japan to attack them, nor did they think that Japan had the capabilities to attack. It was that the thing is though, do you know that racism actually played a role in why Pearl Harbor actually happened? Because the U.S. government severely underestimated Japan's military capabilities, and they thought that Japan did not have the capability to actually launch an attack on Pearl Harbor. And when the attack on Pearl Harbor actually happened, right, that even surprised the Nazis. They didn't even think the Japanese had the capabilities to do that. And what happened is the American media was then saying, like, how did Japan manage to do this? How did they manage to do this attack? The Nazis must have supplied them with advanced weapons and stuff like that. But no, Japan did that all on its own. It was just that the West underestimated Japan. They didn't think that Japan was capable of doing something like that, and so they should have been better prepared. But people, yeah. Yeah, well, it's like I said, like winning World War II. The Americans didn't win World War II, nor did the Soviets and the Russians win World War II. The Allies won World War II. It was a team effort. It wasn't an American victory. It wasn't a Russian victory. It was a team victory. It was an Allied victory. That's what it was. And Japan underestimated U.S. retaliation in the attack. Yes, they did. You're right. You are right on that. They underestimated America's willpower and America's manufacturing, too. Admiral Yamamoto, the admiral who actually helped plan the Pearl Harbor attack, was actually against it. It was actually Tojo, who was the shogun of Japan, who ordered the attack on Pearl Harbor. But Yamamoto had actually studied in America. He spent years in America. He studied at Harvard, and he knew how America's manufacturing what it was like. And so the other Japanese leadership did not fully grasp that also. But also, it was that Admiral Yamamoto actually considered it dishonorable what Japan did, because while Admiral Yamamoto was not a good guy, he was a pretty brutal guy too. The reason he considered it dishonorable what Japan did was because he thought it was dishonorable that Japan declared war on America just attacked America without a declaration of war. And he didn't think that, you should really do something like that you have to give another country a declaration of war before you do it. But he realized that now the Americans were going to retaliate. And that's what happened. Is Japan heavily underestimated the U.S. Yugoslavia was neutral during the Cold War. You are right on that. America ended the war, though, didn't they? No, it was really a team effort. Like Japan surrendered, to the U.S. at the end, which ended World War II, but it was still a team effort. It was ultimately an Allied victory.
Okay.
Let me see here. Thank you, Aussie. Is there a way to change my content license to Creative Commons from more than a month old? I meant to make some of my contents for meme and fun purposes, but they are copyright claimed. I'm actually not that sure on that, Patrick. I know that when you go on Google Images, you can choose the advanced settings to change the search for like images and stuff like that to be Creative Commons, which I think that allows you to basically use something without needing to worry about copyright. World War I was just a much more complicated, subject than World War II. If I started talking about World War I, I could probably talk about that for like an hour long about all the causes of that war. What do you think of each approach for the Diamond Casino heist? Thank you, Joshua. I would say my favorite is probably the stealth approach because I just like sneaky. But I think all of them are pretty well done. I don't think there's really an approach that's bad in the Diamond Casino heist. I mean, probably if anything, the young ancestor approach just kind of sucks. But most of them are actually pretty good.
You're a biker.
Okay, 3-mile drive here. You think Jack Marston saw World War II? He was born in the 1890s. Yeah, he would have seen World War II. He probably would have been in his 60s. Yeah, he would have seen it. He wouldn't have fought there probably. He'd been too old to fight, but he would have seen it. Yeah. Yeah, at the end, I got the crusties. Oh. Okay, GD, I remember you now. You said made a different name, but what? Why do you want me to unadd you? Thank you for the super chat. Favorite Star Wars movie? Yes, my favorite Star Wars movie would be Episode 4, A New Hope. I just like that one. Because Episode 4, A New Hope had so much content in it. Where, you know, you just started out like Luke on the, on Tatooine, when he's just like a poor farmer, to like at the end of the movie when he blows up the Death Star. So I thought like Episode 4 is like the perfect Star Wars movie. No, I don't, okay? No, the shortcuts here. Wait, did we have 4 bikes? Oh, okay.
Well, at least.
Yeah, I would agree with you that the new Star Wars movies aren't really Star Wars movies. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. So with my poll on the new fighter jet, should the new fighter jet in GT Online San Andreas Mercenaries DLC have explosive cannons? 26% voted yes, 11% no, 62% voted as long as it isn't overpowered, it's fine to have them. Edgar Ross didn't kill John Marston. The strange man killed him via influencing a major paranoia in Edgar towards Marston when he shot him 3 times. Is that a theory, JD? Well, my bike earlier took too long to spawn, Yara. I don't know what was happening with it. Do you think the next Grand Theft Auto should encourage roleplay and realistic gameplay, or should it remain strictly a sandbox game? I mean, you could have realistic roleplay and it'd be a and it'd still be a sandbox game. Let me drive. I can get it there fast. I know a little shortcut to get it there a little quicker on this route. I don't know how this makes sense. This truck can shoot from the back, but you can't get shot at the back. That makes no sense. Honestly, I'm surprised that Rockstar hasn't shut down the RP servers. Because it just, they try to ruin fun a lot of times. Well, yes, Riley, I will help you right after this. Modern Warfare, the rumor is that Modern Warfare 3 is going to be the next Call of Duty game this year. If that is true, that means the next Call of Duty game is coming out in 5 months, and it's going to be Modern Warfare 3 already, so it's, yeah, so that's getting a bit crazy. What's your opinion on Elder Scrolls Online? Great question. Oh, okay. Okay, GD. Thank you for the super chat. What's your new one? What I'll say about Elder Scrolls Online, person who asked me that question. Elder Scrolls Online is a fun game when you play with friends. When you're playing it solo, it's kind of really boring, actually. But Elder Scrolls Online, I played a decent amount of it. I can tell you about Elder Scrolls Online. Here's what I think about Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online, the PvP in that game is just so broken at times. It really is. Because it's, sometimes people will get this, like, super rare gear, which will get them, like, you know, insane abilities, insane bonuses, damage bonuses, or it'll give them, like, you know, massive health bonuses back. And, you know, with a combination of magicka, they can basically keep restoring their health unlimited, and they won't be able to kill each other. Like, if you want to know how broken the PvP is, I saw one time where these two guys challenged each other to a duel, and they both had some, like, really overpowered gear, and they weren't able to kill each other. For, like, 5 minutes straight, they were still fighting, and they barely put a dent in each other's health. And when I went up against either of them, they'd kill me really quickly. So, like, they weren't able... If you make a shortcut turn left here, you can just go the wrong way, and just, it'll save you, like, 30 seconds of driving here. Okay. But, Michael Townley and Dimitri? Oh, Michael Townley would win. But, I was tell you this. I was playing, the Cyrodiil one. Cyrodiil in Elder Scrolls Online is the, Cyrodiil is the PvP area that you go into. And so I was playing in a squad, a group, on Cyrodiil. We had 4 players. We go over, we take this castle over. There's this AI that's guarding the castle. We kill all the AI, and we're taking the flag over on the castle. What happens is, this other player from the other faction comes on over. We were the Ebonheart Pact. I think the guy was from the Aldmeri Dominion. But the other player comes over, and all 4 of us are, like, decent levels. We're not terrible at the game, but we're not amazing either. And so all 4 of us literally were attacking this one guy at once who was hostile towards us. And we were not, even with all 4 of us attacking him, he was still regenerating his health so quickly. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, how broken is this game? That, like, you know, you can have 4 players like that just constantly attacking somebody, and they can just regenerate health that quickly like that. Like, what kind of build is that? What the hell? And so what happens is, we kept attacking him, and we barely put a dent in his health. And what happened is, we lost, like, half of our magicka, half of our fatigue. And then do you know what the guy does? Then the guy, after we drained of all of our magicka and all of our fatigue, the guy attacks us, and he kills all of us. It's like that crap in World of Warcraft. Like, when you saw that World of Warcraft episode in South Park, when there's, like, the one guy killing everybody, it was, like, pretty much the same thing in Elder Scrolls Online. It was, like, this one guy, like, where all 4 of us were fighting him, trying to, like, take him down, and we couldn't. And then he just killed us all like that, like nothing. And I was like, what kind of broken gear does this guy have? This is ridiculous. So that's personally my opinion on Elder Scrolls Online, is that, like, sometimes the game is fun, but, like, the PvP is just so broken, and, like, people have those insane builds, it's, like, ridiculous, and it's just, like, it just doesn't get fun when it's like that, personally. I just find those builds annoying. Okay, just invite me to the business whenever you're ready. So GTA 6 bring back side missions like Vigilante, Paramedic, and Firefighter? Yeah, those would be cool. You You know something? I liked the vigilante in GTA 4. I actually really liked it. How GTA 4 had that most wanted. I actually liked that. And I thought that was cool. So I'd like to see something like that back in GTA 6. Okay, and just sell it whenever you're ready here.
All right.
Let's see here. Oh, this will be easy. Call Lester for this.
I take it this isn't a social call. Oh, hey, you're in trouble. Okay. I'll deal with it.
Should be able to finish the mission in 2 minutes. The easiest bunker mission ever, just one drop. Oh, oops. Is League of Legends overrated? I actually don't know much about that game, DHC. Belgians make wonderful chocolates. Well, I never had Belgian chocolate. Hey, Young Hebrew, how are you, man? Who's worse, Stalin or Mao? That's a very hard question to answer. Mao Zedong technically killed more people than Stalin, but
I'm totally organic.
here's the difference. Mao Zedong killed more people than Stalin, but most of Mao Zedong's deaths were from starvation, where most of Stalin's deaths were from murders. So that was the difference between them. Mao Zedong had just really bad policies that caused massive starvation in China. Oh, the Great Leap Forward. Mao Zedong also did a lot of murders too. But Stalin had starvation too. He had the Holodomor, the starvation in Ukraine. But the Great Leap Forward, I think it was like 30 or 40 million people that starved to death. So that was in China. It was just horrible. So it was they're both just really, really evil men. Just some of the worst people that ever existed. I'll say that Stalin, I know much more about Stalin. Stalin, if you want to know how evil Stalin is, basically what happened is, I was trying to think of a few things I can tell. Stalin had a specific policy, not to wake him up, no matter what, not to ever come into his room. So he had like a room he would be in, his office, his bedroom, and he would give specific orders not to ever come into that room, not to ever come in there. And what happened was one day Stalin was just yelling to his guards. He's like, guards, help, help. And the guards come in, And then Stalin said, I told you not to come in here. It was a test to see if you'd come in here. And he had both of the guards executed for that. So that's the type of person that Stalin was. So he faked being in trouble just to see whether his guards would actually come in the room when he told them not to come in the room. And Stalin got karma in the end for that, because what happened was Stalin had a stroke. And Stalin had a stroke, and when he had a stroke, he was actually, his guards actually heard him drop to the floor, but they didn't want to come in the room because they were scared of him. And so he died. He had a stroke. He didn't have medical attention until it was too late. So he got basically karma for that. But that's the type of guy Stalin was. There are also some really messed up things that Stalin did. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, Stalin's wife. What happened with Stalin's wife is she noticed that a lot of the people that she knew started disappearing. Like, they just started disappearing all of a sudden, and they were being killed off by Stalin, and she asked Stalin, like, what happened to all these people? And Stalin is, like, saying, like, oh, I don't know, they just disappear, they vanished, when Stalin clearly killed them all. And so she realized that she married a monster, and so what his wife did is his wife killed herself. And she left a note, and she wrote that, what did she say? She said that no matter what, Stalin would find her wherever she tried to run away to, so she just couldn't stand being married to somebody like that. There was also, what else happened with Stalin? Stalin's son, one of his sons, he abused him constantly, and what happened was his son actually got captured by the Nazis during World War II. So one of Stalin's sons actually got captured early in the war. And what happened was Stalin had Hitler's nephew captured, and so the Nazis wanted to do a trade of Stalin's son for Hitler's nephew. Now, Stalin didn't agree to the trade, and to a degree, it's understandable why he wouldn't agree to the trade, because he wouldn't want his son to be seen as more valuable than, like, anybody else. But at the same time, he really didn't care that his son had gotten captured, and he actually talked crap about his son, and he said that his son was a coward who allowed himself to get captured. But the reality of it was that his son actually fought till the very end, but got captured when he ran out of ammo. So Stalin actually did not care about his son getting captured, and Stalin basically said, he's like, why should I trade Hitler's nephew for a lieutenant? That's what he said, which his son was a lieutenant. So Stalin didn't even care that his own son got captured, and what happened was the Nazis tried to get Stalin's son to make propaganda against him, but he refused. And so even after his own father abandoned him, he still wouldn't screw over his own country. And what happened in the end is Stalin's son was actually taken to a concentration camp, and he had actually ran into an electrical fence and killed himself. So that's how Stalin's son died. It's a really messed up story. His own dad didn't even care. That's the type of guy that Stalin was. A very ruthless guy. Didn't even care about his wife. Didn't care about his son. There's nobody that Stalin really loved. So that was, he's, Stalin's like a perfect example of a psychopath dictator. Yes, that is true. Stalin had his personal doctor, his personal physician sent to a gulag. That is true. Basically, what Stalin's doctor examined him, did a well check on him, and Stalin's doctor basically told him that he's too stressed, and that he needs to relax more and take time off. And Stalin apparently took that as an insult and sent his doctor to a gulag. So that is, for a doctor gives you an advice that you need to rest, not get so stressed out, and for Stalin to see that as an insult and send his doctor to a gulag. But one of the scariest things that Stalin ever did is there was this guy called Lavrentiy Beria, and Beria was one of Stalin's top guys. Now Beria was a really, really bad guy, like a very, very bad guy. He did a lot of purges. He murdered a lot of people. But Beria was also a serial rapist. So what Beria would actually do is he would drive around the streets of Moscow in his limo, and Beria was this is kind of ironic because these guys consider themselves communists, but he's driving around in a limo, living all fancy-like. So he would drive around his limo around the streets of Moscow, and he would find random women and just invite them into the limo. And what then he would do is he would rape the women, and what he would do afterwards is when he was done raping the women, he would give them a bouquet of flowers. And the reason that he would give the women a bouquet of flowers was so that the women would admit that it was consensual when it wasn't. And if the woman took the flowers, she was allowed to leave. If the woman didn't take the flowers, he'd have her killed. And he did this to dozens and dozens and dozens of women. And Stalin knew about this. He knew that Beria was doing this. and he made no attempt to stop him whatsoever. Now, what ended up happening is one day Stalin's daughter, his daughter, visited Beria's house. And Stalin knew that his daughter was at Beria's house. And Stalin panicked, and he called Beria. He called him, and he said to him, "Don't you touch my daughter. Don't do anything to her, or you will regret it." And you would think that after Stalin knows stuff like this is happening, that he would actually stop Beria from raping and killing more women, but no. Stalin didn't even have Beria killed or arrested or anything like that afterwards. Stalin's daughter wasn't harmed by Beria, but what happened is Stalin knew that Beria was still raping and kidnapping women and killing women, and he did nothing about it. Nothing. It was only when his own daughter was threatened, and then after his own daughter was threatened, he still did nothing about it. He still let him keep raping and killing women. So that's the type of guy that Stalin was. It was like, Stalin is one of the most evil men that ever, walked the earth, and he's a really, really bad guy. Like, I've read a lot about Stalin, and, reading just the things that he's done, it's just, so disgusting, so horrible. You think, how can somebody like that exist? How can somebody like that possibly sleep at night? It's this horrible human being. Well, Trotsky wasn't a good guy himself. Trotsky would have his own soldiers shot for retreating. That's the type of person that Trotsky was. But Trotsky, as bad as he was, if he was the leader of the Soviet Union, he wouldn't have killed as many people as Stalin. So he wasn't as ruthless as Stalin. So that was, Stalin was much worse than Trotsky. Even though Trotsky wasn't a good guy himself, he was better than Stalin at least. But yeah, that's the type of guy that Stalin was. If you want to know what happened to Beria, Beria, the really creepy thing about him is that the Soviet embassy it was like a South American country. I think it was Ecuador, Peru. I'm trying to remember what it was, but Beria had an office in that embassy in that South American country. And then, decades later, when it was a Russian embassy, it wasn't the Soviet embassy anymore, but it was a Russian embassy. That same embassy was being renovated, and when it was being renovated, they found human skulls in the walls. And that was from Beria's victims. He killed women and had them basically shoved in between the walls in that embassy. So this is one of the type of guy that Stalin would surround himself with. So Stalin surrounds himself with people like that. You know exactly the type of people that Stalin is. Stalin also, what he did was, Stalin knew this one guy called Sergei Yezhov. People might not know who Sergei Yezhov is, but if you see a picture of Sergei Yezhov's face, you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I've seen his face before. Sergei Yezhov was the leader of the NKVD, which was the Soviet secret police. And what happened was Sergei Yezhov, on Stalin's orders, had killed lots of people that Stalin opposed. So anybody that Stalin was, even if Stalin was a little bit paranoid of you, even if Stalin had no evidence that you were plotting against him, if he just thought that you were plotting against him, even if he had no evidence, he'd have you killed or sent to a gulag. And so Yezhov was Stalin's go-to guy for that. Yezhov is the guy that Stalin would send over to basically get rid of anybody that he didn't like. And so Yezhov killed off a bunch of people, had them all killed, executed, and then what happened was Stalin had Yezhov executed after that, after he killed everybody. Now, why did Stalin have Yezhov killed? He didn't have Yezhov killed because he thought that Yezhov was plotting against him. Yezhov was actually very loyal to Stalin. The reason that Stalin had Yezhov killed is so he could put the blame on Yezhov entirely, saying, oh, I never ordered all those people killed, it was Yezhov who did that. So he had Yezhov killed, and then basically just blamed it all the killings on him when it was him who ordered it. So he had this guy kill a bunch of people, and then had him killed to cover up the whole thing. There's actually a very famous picture that you can see of Stalin where he's actually walking by a river and Yezhov is right next to him. And then there's a second version, the Soviet media version, where they edited him out like Photoshop back then. They literally took him out of the picture. So that's basically, to sum it up, that's for people asking me how evil Stalin was in the comments. That's the type of person that Stalin was. He was a very, very, very bad guy. He deserves, yeah, Stalin deserves some credit for defeating the Nazis during World War II, sure. But at the same time he did very horrible things. And he killed millions of people as well. So he was, he's not a hero by any means. Not at all. Oh, Nikolai Yezhov. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I messed up his name. So it was Nikolai Yezhov, not Sergei Yezhov. Okay, so you're right. It was Nikolai. So I messed that up then. But you know the history that I'm talking about then. What's your race and class in Elder Scrolls Online? I have an Imperial character, an Orc character, and I have a Dark Elf character, but I play primarily on the Dark Elf character. There was, the thing about that is there was actually there was a Soviet World War II propaganda movie about the Battle of Berlin. And it still came out when Stalin was alive. Now that Soviet propaganda movie, I forget what it was called. Somebody probably knows in the comments. It came out like right after World War II. It was about the Battle of Berlin. And in the movie, there's a scene where Stalin actually comes into Berlin as the Soviets are, you know, when the Soviets won. And that scene did not happen. Stalin was not at Berlin. That didn't happen. They put that in the movie as propaganda. That didn't actually happen. And what ended up happening is there was a Soviet soldier, I don't remember his rank, but he got really pissed off when he saw that movie. Because he said, you know, we fought and bled to defeat the Nazis in Berlin. We took Berlin. Stalin was not there. He didn't help. He was never in Berlin. And the guy got arrested and sent to a gulag. So that was it. So the guy was a war hero, and because he criticized Stalin for lying about him being criticized a movie that lied about Stalin being in Berlin, he got sent to a gulag. So that was it. There was also, and for people wondering what happened to Beria, the serial rapist that worked for Stalin, he did get karma in the end, because what happened was, right after Stalin died, Khrushchev took over. Khrushchev was one of Stalin's guys, but Khrushchev wasn't even like Khrushchev. While he was a bad guy, Khrushchev wasn't an evil guy like Stalin was. Khrushchev had some morals, where Stalin had no morals. Basically, Khrushchev purged Stalin's entire cabinet. So all of the people that were working with Stalin, the top people that were loyal to Stalin, Khrushchev had them purged right after he took power. And it was a good thing he did that, because a lot of those people had committed really horrible crimes. And even after Stalin died, Stalin would have still been killing people even after Stalin died, because the people that Stalin left in charge would have still been killing a lot of people and innocent people. And so with Khrushchev basically went to what's his name? I'm just trying to think of his name. Damn, how could I forget this? Marshal Zhukov. Okay, so Marshal Zhukov was basically like the Patton of the Soviet Union. He was like the Soviet Union's greatest general during World War II. And Marshal Zhukov, was, like I said, arguably the best Soviet general during World War II. He is credited with defeating the Nazis on the Eastern Front, mostly. Now, Marshal Zhukov despised Stalin. He hated Stalin. No accident here. The reason that he hated Stalin was because of Stalin's purges. He was not a fan of that, but also he didn't like it because Zhukov felt like Stalin took more credit for his victories. Because Zhukov was the one who was leading troops into battle and actually defeating the Nazis, and Zhukov didn't like that about Stalin, how Stalin was trying to take credit for that stuff. And what happened is, Stalin wanted Zhukov dead, but Stalin couldn't kill Zhukov. And the reason that Stalin couldn't kill Zhukov was because Zhukov was the hero of the Soviet Union. He was very popular. Like, this guy is like, the top general that helped defeat the Nazis who invaded your country. He's like the, Zhukov had even become more popular than Stalin to a degree, you could argue that. And Stalin felt that was a threat to his power. He wanted Zhukov killed, but he couldn't kill Zhukov because of how popular he was. And so Stalin was scared if he killed Zhukov, he might have a revolt on his hands. So he left Zhukov alone. Now, after Stalin died, Khrushchev went up to Zhukov and said, hey, can you get the Soviet military to help me purge these people that were responsible in Stalin's cabinet? And Zhukov said, sure, I'm no fan of Stalin, I hate him too. And so the Zhukov helped Khrushchev basically purge the Soviet leadership of those really bad people. And Beria was actually one of those guys, the serial rapist that got arrested. Now, what happened with Beria was actually shot. He was just put up against a wall and just shot. Now, Beria was insulting Khrushchev, but then the moment that he was actually put up against the wall, he was begging for his life. And the most ironic thing about Beria's death is Beria was actually claiming he deserves a fair trial. That's what Beria was saying. He's saying, I deserve a fair trial. You can't do this. You can't just execute me on the spot like this. But the thing is, Beria killed thousands and thousands of people. This guy was a mass murderer. Those people that he killed didn't get a fair trial. He kidnapped random women and would rape them and kill them. And none of those people ever got a fair trial. None of them ever did. And the same guy who killed so many people was demanding a fair trial. So I think he got what he deserved. He deserved it when he got put up against the wall and just shot. He was a terrible human being. And so it was that's the thing that's why, you know, when you learn about history, you know, everything is, you don't know a lot of these things. It's just like everything is not necessarily like black and white. Like Khrushchev in the West, we know about Khrushchev. We see Khrushchev as a really bad guy in the West, because Khrushchev was the guy who was responsible for the Cuban Missile Crisis. So in the West, we hate Khrushchev because he caused the Cuban Missile Crisis. But even though, yes, Khrushchev did cause the Cuban Missile Crisis, Khrushchev did do good things also. You know, when he purged Stalin's leadership, Khrushchev, that was a good thing. Khrushchev saved millions of lives by purging Stalin's leadership, getting rid of all those people that were in Stalin's cabinet. He did save a lot of people by doing that. He de-Stalinized Russia. That was a good thing. He got rid of Stalin's cult of personality. Khrushchev, also, what Khrushchev tried to do is he tried to end forced labor in the Soviet Union. He tried to end the Gulag system. He actually did try to. But Khrushchev couldn't do that. He couldn't end the Gulag. So even though Khrushchev shut down the majority of the Gulags, he couldn't shut them all down. And the reason he couldn't shut them all down was because Stalin made the Soviet economy so dependent on gulags that if Khrushchev shut them all down, the Soviet economy would collapse. So even though Khrushchev wanted to shut down all the gulags, he couldn't do that. So that's the thing. That's what you don't know about Khrushchev. Yes, was Khrushchev a bad guy? Yes, he did do some bad things. I mean, Khrushchev did kill people for Stalin also, before Stalin's death. But when Khrushchev took power, he did do a lot of good things, and he did get rid of, you know, Stalin's top leadership. He de-Stalinized Russia. He shut down a lot of gulags. So, yes, he did do some bad things, but he did also do some really good things. So that's why I say, like, Stalin, for example, is evil, where Khrushchev is more just a bad guy. And I don't think that Khrushchev personally gets enough credit for that. I don't think he gets credit for, you know, just saving a lot of people, because he did save a lot of people. I'm no communist. I don't like communists, but Khrushchev did save a lot of people when he, you know, arrested and had a lot of Stalin's cabinet killed. So that's, you know, this really interesting things that you can read about history that you might not necessarily know about that. If anybody ever wants to, like, if anybody ever wants to see a movie about this stuff that I'm talking about, you know, Khrushchev, like, purging Stalin's leadership, watch the movie The Death of Stalin. The Death of Stalin is kind of a comedy, but there's a lot of things that it's also based on real events that happened in the movie that basically show a lot of the stuff that happened. Okay. What's your opinion on Lenin? Lenin was also a bad guy. I mean, Lenin was the one who created the Cheka. The Cheka, they killed a lot of people. Lenin wasn't as bad as Stalin, but Lenin was still a bad guy. Okay, we're gonna get out right here. Did you watch Schindler's List Pro? Oh yeah, I saw that movie a long time ago, but I remember it. Liam Nielsen, he played in that movie. I actually like that movie was in black and white. I thought that was a very interesting feature about that movie. The guy who did all those horrible things in that movie, Eamon Goff, he actually got executed in Poland after the war. Bro, did Stalin love his daughter? Stalin loved his daughter much more than he loved his sons. You should be a history teacher. Well, thank you. I like reading history a lot, but I don't know if I necessarily would like to be a teacher. What do you think Avon Hertz would have done if he succeeded? Take over the world with his AI? Okay. It's opposite with Gorbachev, loved in West, not Russia. Well, the thing is, Khrushchev isn't necessarily loved in the Soviet Union either. A lot of people see Khrushchev as or Russia, I should say. A lot of Russians see Khrushchev as incompetent, when Khrushchev was actually one of the better leaders of the Soviet Union. The thing is, though, if the most incompetent leader in the Soviet Union would have to be Stalin. Stalin made so many dumb mistakes. He did so many stupid things. So it would have to probably be Stalin. That would probably be the most incompetent leader. Khrushchev is definitely not the most incompetent leader of the Soviet Union. That'll definitely be Stalin. I want to make a video on Niko Belic's origin story one day eventually. I want to get around to that. Favorite World War II movie? Probably Midway. Midway, I would probably say, is my favorite World War II movie. If you're talking about in terms of Pacific movies, yeah, Midway would be my favorite one. In terms of European World War II movies, that's a very hard one. I would have to say my favorite World War II European movie would probably have to be The Pianist. The Pianist would probably have to be my favorite one, yeah. I would say The Pianist. And The Pianist isn't even a movie about soldiers. It's about, like, one guy's, like, survival in, like, you know, Nazi-occupied Poland, which is based on a true story. And just, like, the movie starts out with, like, you know, Poland getting invaded, and then just, you see, like, the occupation throughout the whole movie all the way till the very end when the Nazis get kicked out. And so he sees, like, a lot of horrible things in the movie. He survives a lot of horrible events. Yeah, it's based on a true story. The guy actually went through most of that stuff that you actually see in the movie. And he ended up, he's a pianist. He played the piano. So that was, yeah, that was a really good movie. One of the things that I'll say, I can help somebody with one or two more sales and then we'll do the heist. One of the things that the pianist gets right, that a lot of World War II movies actually didn't show, is the destruction of Warsaw afterwards. Because there's a lot of movies that show, like, the Polish uprising, but, let me see here, Warsaw Uprising. But there's not a lot of movies that show what happened after the uprising. There aren't that many movies in that regard. And The Pianist actually shows that pretty well. So, do you know that in The Pianist, if anybody's seen the movie, you know the part when he's, you know, in the apartment buildings and the Germans are just sending the tanks in and just blowing up all the apartment buildings? That it happened kind of like that because when the Warsaw Uprising first happened, the rebels in Poland, they actually won originally. They started winning, and they actually kicked the Nazis out of the capital. They did. They liberated the capital for a little bit, but what happened was the Nazis actually sent panzers into the city afterwards, and they took the city back and it was horrible. Like, the Nazis were just destroying any building that they thought had rebels in it. They would just blow up. They didn't care if there were civilians or not inside of it. And what actually happened was, after the Warsaw Uprising, Hitler was so furious that the city had rebelled against him that he ordered the entire city of Warsaw to actually be destroyed with flamethrowers. And so Warsaw was one of those few cities in the war that was literally intentionally destroyed as a civilian target, because a lot of cities in World War II were destroyed, but they were destroyed as a result of fighting between two sides. But Warsaw was one of those cities that was intentionally destroyed. It was intentionally a city that was targeted with civilians. The whole city was pretty much destroyed, 95% of it. I know the Japanese also did a very similar thing in the Pacific. They destroyed Manila, the city, the Philippine city. They intentionally destroyed the whole city, like 90% of it also. So that happened, but the Nazis were basically in The Pianist. Yes, the Nazis actually, they went door to door with flamethrowers. That's what they did. And they would just burn down the buildings in Warsaw. And 95% of Warsaw was destroyed. Like, if you look at them, just go on Google Images and type in Warsaw, 1945. And you can see what the city looks like. It's just a pile of rubble. That's what the whole city looks like. And The Pianist shows that. It shows, like, what happened after the uprising, how they just went with flamethrowers and were just destroying the whole city and just burning people alive. And you know, and 250,000 Polish people died in that. So it was just in that event alone. So there was it was just horrible. But a lot of people don't know about the destruction of Warsaw. They don't know about how the whole city was really burnt down afterwards. So that's why I say the Pianist is probably my favorite, you know, World War II European movie. I would say, yeah. But I'm going to talk much more about World War II history when I play Medal of Honor Frontline on June 6th. Yeah, I mean, I like the shaking camera in Kane and Lynch too, but I can understand why some people didn't like it, because it kind of makes them dizzy and sick. I kind of get that to an extent. The Japanese did destroy Manila because what happened was in 1944 the U.S. was liberating the Philippines, and the Japanese ordered the entire city of Manila to be destroyed. So they went block by block, just blowing it up, and they didn't care about all the Filipino civilians that were there. But go on Google and look up Japanese destruction of Manila, and you'll probably find some good articles that talk about that. But yes. How much parts are left to Kane and Lynch? Only one part. No, I actually have never seen Dunkirk. I should see it, but I've never seen it. Oh, you made a donation? I'm really sorry if I missed it. How did you learn all this? School? YouTube? Thank you, Bump, for the super chat. Thank you, man. Most of my history knowledge actually does not come from school. Most of my history knowledge just comes from just reading on the internet. I just like to read a lot. That's just where most of my history knowledge comes from. What is it? Do you know what the best source of material history, where the best place you can read history is? You know where that is? Wikipedia. I know some people might say, no, Wikipedia is unreliable. No, I'll tell you, as somebody who likes history and knows World War II history pretty well, I can tell you that Wikipedia is pretty reliable for the most part. I have seen very few mistakes on Wikipedia, very few. And when there is a mistake, it gets corrected pretty quickly. The reason that Wikipedia is so helpful regarding history is because you have all that history in just one thing. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, you can read about Battle of Stalingrad, like on Wikipedia, right? And you can read about how many losses both sides took. You can read about how long the battle lasted, and then you have like separate pages where you can read about the commanders on each side. You can read about the Soviet commanders, you can read about the German commanders, you can read about the tactics they used, you can read about the army specifically. You can read about the weapons that they use, all in one single page. Like, there's different links to all that stuff. And that's why Wikipedia is so helpful, because it doesn't cover just one topic. It covers like a whole wide array of that stuff. So that's what I'll say about it. When teachers tell you don't use Wikipedia, it's unreliable, that's nonsense. The real reason that teachers don't want you to use Wikipedia, it's not because it's unreliable, but because it's too easy. It makes schoolwork too easy. That's pretty much the reason they don't want to use Wikipedia. But here's a little thing that you guys can do. When you have a paper next time, instead of using Wikipedia, what you can do is click on the Wikipedia page and then look down to the sources, because they have to list the sources, and then use the sources that they use for the Wikipedia page, because most of the time the sources are really good, and so you can find that out there. So that's what I'll say is Wikipedia is Wikipedia, I would say, was a great site. Hey, Pro, you're awesome. Thank you, Bunny. History is a waste of time. No, it's not. History is very important, especially for understanding why events happen the way they are. I mean, if you didn't have history, you wouldn't know, how our own country was formed. So history is very important.
Leave it with me.
And if you don't know about history, you're doomed to repeat history again if you don't know about it. So this history teaches us. It teaches us about the bad things that people did. And so we're less likely to repeat mistakes like that in the future. You missed my chat? Let me see. Gretty, I'm sorry if I did. I have a question. Why did East Germany and Albania left the Warsaw Pact? And who was the Stasi? Was they worse than the ASP, Albanian Secret Police? Why was the Soviet Union hated Albania? Okay. I can answer your question, Gretty. The East Germany didn't leave the Warsaw Pact. They didn't. What you're basically thinking of is that East Germany refused to participate in the Warsaw Pact invasions. So when the Warsaw Pact invaded Hungary, they didn't want anything to do with that, and they also didn't want anything to do with that when the Warsaw Pact invaded Czechoslovakia. They still were a member of the Warsaw Pact, but they didn't want anything to do with the intervention itself. Now, as for Albania, Albania actually left the Warsaw Pact. I think Albania was the only country that actually left the Warsaw Pact. But Yugoslavia was not a member of the Warsaw Pact ever, but I think Albania was a member at one point. Now, the reason that Albania actually left the Warsaw Pact, the reason Albania did it was because the Albanian leader actually liked Stalin a lot. So him and Stalin actually got along a lot. And when Khrushchev took power, and they Khrushchev de-Stalinized the Soviet Union, and he de-Stalinized the Warsaw Pact, there were some people that didn't like that. And Albania was one of those countries. Albania was a big fan of Stalinism, and so they didn't like it that Khrushchev de-Stalinized the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union, and so they looked for greater ties with China. That's actually one of the reasons of the Sino-Soviet split. That's why China and the Soviet Union hated each other, even though they're both communist countries. It started with Stalin's death, because Communist China and the Soviet Union were allies up until the point of Stalin's death. And what happened is, Communist China, Mao was a very big fan of Stalin. And so they didn't like Khrushchev de-Stalinizing the Soviet Union, and so that was pretty much what the split was about. Albania, I think it was Albania was the only communist country that I think took China's side. I'm trying to think of whether there was another communist country. I think it was Albania. I think was the only country. Not even Vietnam took China's side. Vietnam was more, if you notice, Vietnam was always more closer to the Soviets than they were to the communist Chinese. The reason for that is because the Vietnamese saw the Chinese as their historical oppressors, so that's why they had a much better relationship with the Soviets than they did with the Chinese. But that's pretty much what it was about. That's why Albania and the Soviet Union kind of split. It was that. I hope I answered your question. Speaking of which, Grady, I will be actually doing SOCOM 2 this month, which has a huge chapter in Albania. I hope you watch it. Do you read history on books? Between books or internet, which one do you look up or more on history? Reading in books kind of fancy in a way, in my opinion. I mean, I like reading on the internet because on the internet I can just search up the specific topic that I want. You can't necessarily do that in a book. Oh, today is, yes, the Tiananmen Square. That was, oh man, the government of China to this day denies that happened. You had hundreds of people that were murdered, and it was just... And do you know what China actually did during the Tiananmen Square massacre? They actually brought in soldiers that were from different provinces, because they knew if they brought in soldiers that were from the same area, they wouldn't shoot at the people there. So they brought in people that were from soldiers that were from different provinces to put that down. No, the Warsaw Pact was specifically a European communist pact. Cuba was never in it. Cuba was an ally of the Warsaw Pact, but they weren't in the Warsaw Pact itself. Thank you, Ian, for the super chat. Thoughts on Brezhnev? Brezhnev was, I think Brezhnev was a more incompetent leader. Brezhnev was Brezhnev, I think, was a more stupid leader than Khrushchev. And Brezhnev is the one who got the Soviets involved in Afghanistan. You have to remember that, too, that was definitely not a good thing to do. Thoughts on the aristocracies? The aristocracies are just an out-of-date system. It was just, the aristocrats throughout history were massive scumbags. Whenever I hear the word aristocrat, I typically think scumbag in the same sentence. Because I'm sure there was honorable, good aristocrats that actually cared about people, but most aristocrats were just terrible people. Like, there was way more scummy or entitled aristocrats than there was good aristocrats. Like, the aristocrats were an elite class of people that lived for centuries throughout Europe, and the aristocrats didn't just exist in Europe. They're more known for Europe, but they existed also in Asia. You had Japanese aristocrats. That's who the samurai were. They were Japanese aristocrats. But they were, the aristocrats were scummy people a lot of times. They were not good people. They took advantage of the peasants. They took advantage of the poor. They would basically have increased taxes on the peasants while lobbying the king to decrease taxes on themselves. They always wanted more privileges, and they wanted less privileges for the poor and less rights for the poor. So they were just not a good people. And also, the aristocrats oftentimes used religion, which I'm not necessarily criticizing the church, but I'm just saying is the aristocrats oftentimes used religion to their advantage. So what the aristocrats would do is that if you went against the aristocrats, you would say this is not a fair system. The aristocrats would say this is what God wanted. God appointed our king, and this is what the king says. And if you go against us, you're going against God. That's why peasants oftentimes would not revolt against the aristocrats, because they were scared of God and they were scared of going to hell, even if the system they had was oppressing them. So that's what I personally think about aristocrats. I think a lot of aristocrats were scummy. The French Revolution is like that, the revolution where the aristocrats really started losing power, but the aristocrats didn't fully lose power until after World War I. When World War I ended, that's when the aristocrats kind of fully lost power at that point. It was kind of over for them. But, yeah. They were just generally not good people. Let me see here. Here, I own you this. Wait, what, Mark? What do you mean you own you this? Or, well, thank you for the super chat, Mark. I appreciate it. You should do a Hell Let Loose stream. Thank you, History. I'll do it. I'll do one. What do I think about the British addition to Hell Let Loose? And what do you mean, what do you mean, Mark? Thank you for the super chat. The British are a nice addition to Hell Let Loose, but I'll tell you something. As somebody who reads World War II history a lot, I can't. Hell Let Loose made a massive mistake, a very big historical mistake, when they added the British into Hell Let Loose. Does anybody know what that mistake is that they made? Not that they added the British in. That's not it. They made a massive mistake. I'll give you guys a hint. The massive historical mistake Hell Let Loose made. It's with the guns. Does anybody know what massive historical mistake they made with the guns? It's in the North Africa theater. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Because that's they made a big mistake with that. What's up, Mr. Waifu?
Don't forget, you are private security, like a cop who couldn't pass the fitness test or the psych eval. Look like you're really getting.
The British being in Hell Let Loose is a great addition. I'm not criticizing the British being in Hell Let Loose. I think it's a great addition to have them in. Well, and it's not even anything to do with the British. It's more about the weapons. The STG-44 is in North Africa. And that really bothers me. Because Hell Let Loose is a game that's Hell Let Loose is a game that prides itself on realism. And for a game that prides itself on realism, to have the STG-44 in Africa, that's really stupid. And I think that they should patch it out. I think it should be patched out. I don't think the STG-44 should be allowed on the North Africa maps. Because that just personally bothers me when I saw that historical inaccuracy. Okay, let's take the stairs. Or actually, no, the elevator. I'm sorry, elevator. It's quicker. Don't hit it yet. Don't hit it yet. No, somebody hit it. Oh. The STG-44 was actually invented in 1943, technically, but it didn't enter mass production until 1944.
Next security check's coming up. You can do this. You keep her cool. Don't be nervous, you know?
Howdy. You looking for the vault? Right up ahead.
Y'all here for the vault, yeah?
Okay, do it.
Alright, you're gonna need your key cards to get into the man trap there. 2-card system.
What do I think of Chiang Kai-shek? Chiang Kai-shek was the last leader of the Republic of China. About Chiang Kai-shek was not a good man. He was a bad guy. He did some bad things. He killed people, sure, he did that. You know, I'm not saying he was a saint. But when you compare Chiang Kai-shek to Mao Zedong,
Oh, you're here.
Mao Zedong is like 3 or 4 times more ruthless and evil than Chiang Kai-shek. So that's what I'll say. Chiang Kai-shek was not a good man, but he was a much better leader than Mao Zedong was. So that's what I'll say about that. Like I tell you something, there's a lot of like propaganda that you'll see on Quora. If you look on Quora, and they'll write specifically about stuff like this. But here's the thing about Chiang Kai-shek is Chiang Kai-shek. One of the things one noble thing about Chiang Kai-shek is that Chiang Kai-shek would refuse to negotiate or surrender to the Japanese. Chiang Kai-shek would fight till the very end. And I think that's one of the best qualities about him, is he would not give in to the Japanese. But what do I say? The worst trait about Chiang Kai-shek is, even though Chiang Kai-shek was how would I say, he was very he wouldn't surrender. He was also very how would I say, naive. And that was, being very naive was probably his downfall. Because what happened was Chiang Kai-shek Chiang Kai-shek stopped fighting with the communists to fight against the Japanese, which I think that was a good thing. You know, they should stop their infighting and just instead fight against the Japanese together. But the problem wasn't that he allied with the communists against the Japanese. Chiang Kai-shek's problem was that after the war ended, he tried to enter a coalition government with the communists, and he thought that the communists would honor their agreements. He thought that the communists wouldn't betray him, but they did. And so he was very naive in that regard, and the Mao Zedong betrayed Chiang Kai-shek. He screwed him over and kicked him out of the mainland. And that's what I'll say about it is Chiang Kai-shek, you know, his worst quality was he was too naive, and Mao Zedong played him. Mao Zedong took advantage of that. He played him, and screwed him over. And that's actually how Taiwan became a country. Taiwan became a country because what happened was Chiang Kai-shek actually fled mainland China and took his army and settled in Taiwan. That's how Taiwan became a country. And what happened is Taiwan, Mao Zedong tried to invade Taiwan, but he didn't have a navy. He didn't have a navy, where Chiang Kai-shek had a navy. Mao Zedong didn't. And so when Mao Zedong finally had a navy and he was ready to invade Taiwan, he couldn't because the U.S. was there. The U.S. actually thought that Taiwan was going to fall, but when it didn't fall, the U.S. actually sent support to Taiwan. And so that's actually how Taiwan became a country today. It was because of that, because Chiang Kai-shek sent his army over there. What happened was Chiang Kai-shek was a dictator of Taiwan, but after Chiang Kai-shek actually died, Taiwan was still a dictatorship for a few years, but eventually it transitioned into a democracy, where China, even when Mao Zedong died, it never transitioned into a democracy. It's still very much a one-party state, where the Chiang Kai-shek's party, the Nationalist Party, I think they were called the Kuomintang, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but they allowed, you know, fair elections afterwards, where the Communist Party in China never allowed fair elections. So that was it. So yes, Chiang Kai-shek, to answer your question, let's leave on converting. Not a good guy. He was a dictator. He did do horrible things too, but he was a much better leader and much better person than Mao. Not saying he was a good person, but compared to Mao, he was a much better person. So that's what I'll say about Chiang. Okay, swipe. Taiwan isn't a country. It is. What are you talking about? It pretty much is a country. It has its own government. It has its own president. It's sovereign. It's a country. Taiwan is a country, according to John Cena. Yeah, well, John Cena's an idiot. John Cena can't see Taiwan either. That's the thing about John Cena. Is who's been enjoying the new Zelda? Oh, thank you, Chaz. Thank you for sponsoring my channel for thank you, man. Nearly 4 years now. I enjoyed watching you play it, though. It reminded me a lot of Mega Man Legends. What country had the worst aristocracies? The worst aristocracies were in two countries, Russia and France. And ironically, both countries had violent revolutions. So that was, so Russia and France had the worst, scummiest aristocracies. That's not a coincidence that they both had violent revolutions, by the way. No, it's okay, Mr. Waifu. It's fine.
Alright, look busy and shout LSFD if anyone gets in your way. Time to change your outfits. We need a fresh start if you're gonna make it out of here under the radar. They're closing in on us. We need to pick up the pace. Security is sweeping the whole building. Stay one step ahead or this whole thing goes south.
Okay, here we go.
As long as you stay calm, those outfits should get you from here to the exit. The cops aren't letting anybody through the perimeter, so you'll have
put away your guns. Put away your guns, right? Because, yeah, can't see us with guns out. Okay. Does the world forgive Italy, Japan, and Germany? Well, thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. I mean, Germany, for the most part, has admitted to its atrocities throughout its history. I'm not sure how Italy teaches its fascist history. That I have no idea about. So if anybody knows about that, let me know in the comments. But I know that Germany does teach about its history and acknowledges, you know, the horrible things that they've done. But Japan. Japan, on the other hand, does not teach its full history.
The driver has the getaway car in position. I've pinged you the GPS. Get to the buyer, don't bring the cops, and we're home.
Favorite which Guardian? Wait, which Guardian? What do you mean, Irma? I'm confused. Is that a show or something? I just want to say I've been enjoying your Kane and Lynch 2 playthrough, and thank you for what you do. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Buck. Now, what I'll say about Japan, Japan's education system, Japan doesn't teach about the full extent. Oh, okay, we're good. Just keep going, keep going. Japan doesn't teach the full extent of the atrocities that it has committed during World War II. And you want to know how Japan actually teaches their history? Japan teaches their history almost like a victim in a way. Japan basically teaches that while Japan acknowledges in its history, in its schools, in education, that it has done conquests and stuff like that, what Japan basically teaches is that other European powers were doing the same thing. That's basically how Japan's education system sees it. And so they've been teaching that stuff, but Japan committed horrible genocides. They did horrible things. Like, if you look at Tojo killed millions of people. His conquests were horrible. You know, so Japan teaches itself as like a victim oftentimes. I love Japanese people and I like Japanese culture, but, you know, Japan also has to admit to the horrible things they've done. You know, especially, you look at how prisoners of war were treated by the Japanese. It's horrible. So, Japan did apologize, though. Did it really? Japan apologized for some of its stuff, but not everything. Not all of it. There was, if you guys want to know what happened, Japan and South Korea have a trade war. People might have heard about it, but a lot of people blame South Korea for that trade war with Japan. But I actually blame Japan for the trade war, not South Korea. Because what basically happened, the reason that South Korea and Japan entered into a trade war was because what was the car company? Mitsubishi. I think it was Mitsubishi. So Mitsubishi made weapons for Japan during World War II. A lot of people don't know that. They just know Mitsubishi for their cars today. Dead here. You gotta try going in the hills. You can't go on the road like that. You have to go in the hills when but yeah, I was trying to duck the entire time, but I had nothing. We had to go in the hills. That was Well, but what I was saying about Japan now here, the South Korean-Japan trade war. Okay, so about it is that the car company Mitsubishi, Japan took over Korea before World War II. And what happened was, Japan kidnapped people from Korea. So they would use Korean forced labor. And they would basically kidnap these Koreans, they would take them to Mitsubishi factories, and these Koreans were basically forced to build airplanes for the Japanese. It was slave labor. And what happened was, there's still a few victims of this alive today. They're very old, but there's still a few of them alive today. And what happened was there was most of the survivors, Japan refused to compensate those survivors for it. Mitsubishi refused to compensate them for it either. While Mitsubishi, the modern day company of Mitsubishi, is not responsible for what Mitsubishi did back then. However, though, Mitsubishi definitely benefited during the Empire of Japan's reign. They made a lot of money building those weapons for the Empire of Japan. So they have some guilt for that, and they have responsibility to also pay the victims, including the Japanese government. And Mitsubishi refused to pay, the Japanese government refused to pay. And the really sad thing about this is that there was only one survivor alive because they were demanding compensation for some time, and most of them died of old age, and there was only one person that was left alive. It was like 90-something years old. You know, close to 100, I believe. And what happened is Japan agreed to finally pay that last victim out. And when they actually paid that last Korean victim out, they only gave her, I think, like $5 or something like that. Like, it was such a insignificant, such a stupid little amount. It was so dumb. And Japan basically argued, oh, this is what a factory worker would have made back then. Like $5 back then, this is what a factory worker would have made, but $5 back then would have been worth way more than what it is today. And so that was just a spit in the face of the survivors and like the people that were kidnapped, the forced labor. And the South Korean government got really angry at the Japanese government and said, no, you pay these survivors their rightful dues. What they suffered a lot. You got to compensate them for this. And Japan basically said no. And so the South Korean government at that point said, you know what, screw this, we're doing a trade war. If you're going to be this unreasonable, we're doing a trade war. And the thing about this is most of the world, when you watch the media, most of the world were like, oh, South Korea is being unreasonable. They started a trade war with Japan. If you watch the media, you would think that South Korea is responsible for this trade war with Japan. But no, it's Japan's fault. Because they refused to compensate the victims for that, and the South Korean government got really mad. I mean, think about that. How pissed off would you get if you know, somebody from your country had suffered because of another country, and you know that country to this day refused to pay that person? You know, that person was like really old, suffered from slave labor. It's just disgusting. So that was just the fact what Japan did there. It was bad. I think that South Korea and Japan eventually resolved their trade war. I think they did. I don't think they're at a trade war anymore, but I personally blame Japan for starting that trade war. It wasn't South Korea, because South Korea was only standing up for its people. So that was it. But yeah, people don't know about a lot of that stuff that was happening. Here. No, Spain wasn't involved in World War II. They provided some assistance to Germany, but they weren't involved for the most part. Would you say that China has the second worst government behind North Korea? China is an oppressive state. It's not the most oppressive state in the world, but out of the largest oppressive states in the world, out of the biggest countries, the most powerful countries, China is the largest, most oppressive state, but it's not the most oppressive state out there. It's one of the most oppressive, but it's not the most, like, North Korea is more oppressive than China, even. You know, China is a really messed up government, too. They'll arrest you, they will censor you, they'll throw you in jail, but it won't, North Korea, they'll execute you rapidly. So that's the difference between the two. What I will say about what's the second most oppressive country in the world behind North Korea, the second most oppressive country? I would say it would have to be one of two countries. It would have to either be the country of Turkmenistan or the country of Eritrea. Eritrea is basically the North Korea of Africa. It's a very small country. It's a military state. There's a dictator in it. You've probably never heard of it. It's a very small African country. It only has one newspaper in the entire country, only one TV channel. It's the government, and basically everyone in the country gets drafted, and people have to serve in the military for decades. So imagine serving in the military for decades. That's what the draft is like in Eritrea. But the thing about that is, I don't know how Eritrea's economy manages to even survive with, like, Eritrea, the fact that it drafts most of its population, so most of the population is in the military. I don't know how that economy manages to survive if most of your people are in the military. But they're a very poor country anyways. Eritrea is actually allied with a few countries. Eritrea is allied with Russia. It's allied with Iran. What other country is it? I think Nicaragua is also another ally of Eritrea. But yeah, Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is another country. Turkmenistan is a country you've probably never heard of. Turkmenistan, that country. Turkmenistan is such a psycho dictatorship that the country of Turkmenistan, the leader of the country actually uploaded a rap music video. So he was actually rapping on TV. I'm not joking. He was actually doing a rap song. And he put it on state TV where he was rapping. So the dictator of Turkmenistan actually rapped and forced his people to watch it on state TV. I'm not joking. This is like something you hear on The Onion. Like, this is like something that you, like that movie, The Dictator. Like, it's like a parody of that, but that actually happened. If you don't believe me, go on YouTube and look up Turkmenistan dictator rap, and it's the most cringe thing ever. Like, this dictator, this guy who killed thousands of people, and, like, you know, running a country with an iron fist, is also doing a rap music video. It's the, but Turkmenistan is a very creepy country. It's not as isolated as North Korea, but it's still a very bad regime. In Turkmenistan, Turkmenistan, most of the buildings in the city, Ashgabat, the capital city, are painted white. And the reason for that is because the dictator put a law in that all the buildings have to be painted white. So that's why every single building is painted white. And not only that, the only cars that are allowed on the streets are white and gray cars. So there's no other car color that's allowed on the streets. If you are only allowed to have a beard in Turkmenistan if you're over 70 years old. There's also I'm trying to think of some other ridiculous laws. Oh yeah, Turkmenistan also shut down all the hospitals outside the capital. So the only hospitals that are in the entire country are in the capital city because the dictator thought it was a waste of money to have hospitals outside the city. So how many people did he kill with that alone? So there's just this is ridiculous. The dictator of Turkmenistan, what he also did, which is another really cringy thing, is he wrote his own books. And the state media in Turkmenistan acts like the guy is like a world-renowned writer. But I've seen his books. I've seen what the dictator of Turkmenistan, his books look like. His books are so stupid. It's like literally like a picture on one full page and then a few words on the other page. Like it's like a book that like a child would write. That's literally what his book is like. And every single bookstore in the country has to have that book. And not only that, when somebody gets sworn into the Turkmenistan parliament, they have to swear on the dictator's book, his picture book. And every single mosque in the country also has to have the book inside it, which the people see that as blasphemy, which it is. It's the fact that you're forcing some dictator's book inside a religious building, and forcing a religious community to also read that. That's literally violating their religious rights. But yet, even though the mosques complained about that in Turkmenistan, they couldn't do anything about that because they were scared of the dictator. So that's really what the country of Turkmenistan is like. Turkmenistan is just the whole country is basically a prison. That's pretty much what it is. It's just scary. It's not a nice country to visit. Not a nice place to live or visit. It is a very creepy country. Another thing is the dictator of Turkmenistan. What he did is he recorded a holiday special. So during Christmas, he actually played the piano and he was singing. And I wouldn't be surprised with that piano if that was staged, if that was fake. Because I don't think he was actually playing it. I think the music was actually playing in the background. But he was singing like Christmas songs and stuff like that while he playing. It's so creepy. Like seeing like a dictator like playing the piano singing Christmas songs. It's massive cringe. And it's just, oh yeah, Syria is definitely a very oppressive dictatorship too. But I would say that Turkmenistan is even more oppressive than Syria. So Syria is a pretty messed up country as well too. But yeah, Turkmenistan is that country that you've never heard about. But here's the thing about this, and here's the really horrible thing about this, is that all the things that I've described to you about Turkmenistan, how psycho this dictatorship is, there's no freedom of speech. The dictator tells every building has to be painted white. Only gray and white cars are allowed in the streets. There's only state media, no freedom of speech. The dictator of the country even built a giant golden statue to his dog in the capital city. You would think that with a psycho dictatorship like this, you would think that you would hear more about it. This is probably the first time you might be hearing about this country, me talking about it. This is a real country. You would think that a country like this that oppresses its people so much, you'd think you'd hear more about this country in the news. You'd think you'd hear more about politicians talking about it. You think you'd hear more about presidents talking about this, saying this is completely not right. We cannot allow a country to abuse its people like that. But why? Why do you never hear about Turkmenistan? You hear about North Korea. For people wondering, North Korea is actually considered the most unfree country in the world. Turkmenistan is actually considered the number 2 most unfree country in the world. So you'd think you'd hear a lot about Turkmenistan if it's just right behind North Korea. But why don't you hear about it? There's actually a few reasons why you don't hear much about Turkmenistan, but you hear about North Korea a lot. I gotta just mute this part because the music is copyright. The first reason that you hear more about Turkmenistan, less about Turkmenistan, more about North Korea, is because North Korea has nuclear weapons. Turkmenistan doesn't have nuclear weapons. That's the first reason that you hear more about North Korea than Turkmenistan. The second reason is Turkmenistan is a neutral country. It doesn't take sides. So even though it's a psycho dictatorship, it doesn't threaten its neighbors. And the third reason that you don't hear about Turkmenistan is because Turkmenistan actually has one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world. And so because of that, the dictator of Turkmenistan sells cheap natural gas to everybody. He sells cheap natural gas to the Russians, and he sells cheap natural gas to the Chinese, and he sells cheap natural gas to the West also. So a lot of the Western countries, the European countries, the United States, Canada, are buying natural gas from this dictator in Turkmenistan, and he's selling it to them for very cheap. And so even though this dictator is, committing murders, doing horrible things in his country, oppressing his people, a lot of the Western governments don't care about that. They don't care. As long as they're getting that cheap natural gas, that's what they primarily care about. So when you hear them saying, they're protecting democracy in a specific place, it's used most of the time it's for an agenda. It's for a specific reason for that. If the dictator of Turkmenistan started going against the West and started not giving them natural gas, then you'd probably start hearing about it more in the media. But that's the reason that you don't hear about it more in the media. That's why you never hear presidents criticize Turkmenistan, is because they sell them cheap natural gas. That's the primary reason. So they just ignore the fact that this country is committing atrocities. That's pretty much it. It's a really horrible thing to think about, that your own leaders know about this dictator and they're just ignoring it because just for cheap natural gas. So if they're getting something out of it, they don't really care about what the dictator does in his own country. That's primarily about it. Even if you turn music off, you still get the copyright claim on that. It still plays. So that's why I keep it to I do that. Do you think King Louis XVI deserved to get executed? You're saying the last king of France, during the Revolution, the French Revolution. I'm not gonna say he deserved to get killed, but what I will say about it is he was guilty of most of the things he was accused of. So that was it. He was not an innocent person. Who's Maury? Let me see here. Well, Idi Amin was a really ruthless guy. He was a dictator of Uganda. He was a really, really bad guy. He killed a lot of people. He committed horrible atrocities. I think Idi Amin was even a cannibal, too. But Idi Amin, he tried to invade Tanzania, but it was a disaster. And his army got destroyed, and Tanzania invaded Uganda back. And he fled eventually to Saudi Arabia. That's where he settled down. The diamond guy? Wait, what about Maury? Oh, yo, right, the diamond guy. The guy who looked at the diamonds. Maury, I remember now, yeah. Do you think America is impossible to invade because of the Second Amendment? That's definitely one of the reasons, but the United States, even if it didn't have a Second Amendment, would still be impossible to invade, and that's because of just how large the country is. Like, no country will be able to fully occupy the United States. The United States have 300 million people. Trying to control all 300 million people, controlling all the cities, all the infrastructure, and all the roads in between them, it'd be a logistics nightmare. No country would be able to handle that. And also on top of that, America has different environments. America has pretty much every environment in the world when you think about it. We have the Arctic in Alaska. We have, the deserts. We have tropical places. We have forests. We have plains. We have, when you pretty much think about swamps, we have pretty much every single environment in the world. I don't think there's one environment that we don't have. So, the terrain is just so different in so many places. And we have mountains also, large mountains that separate huge parts of the country. So, no country would be able to fully occupy the U.S. If anything, if another country invaded the U.S., even if they defeated the U.S. military, maybe they would be able to occupy, one or two states. But they definitely wouldn't be able to occupy the full country. Not Russia, not even China would have the capabilities to occupy all of America. That would not happen. So no, I can't picture that happening. Let's see here. Doki Literature Club? What is that? Oh yeah, definitely. Civilians owning firearms definitely makes it harder for any occupying force to occupy it. I know the Stalker games. There would be a rifle behind every blade of grass. Admiral Yamamoto, Japanese admiral, World War II. I know that quote. Let me see here. I guess I'm gonna be probably wrapping up the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream and getting ready for the next update. If you guys do enjoy my streams and my discussions and stuff like that, do drop a like on it. It does help me out a lot. It does help me out a lot. Let me see. I'll read a few comments before I go here. Are you gonna play the Manhunt games? One day I'll probably play them. Can you play either Red Dead Redemption 1 or Bully Story? After Medal of Honor Frontline, we're probably going to play SOCOM 2. That's probably what we're going to do, because I promised people that we'd do a playthrough of SOCOM 2 in June, and that's what we're going to do. I haven't done the last time I did a SOCOM game was 2 years ago, so we're going to do SOCOM 2 now. My favorite Call of Duty map, Zombies map. Favorite zombies map on Call of Duty? Probably the Outbreak maps. I just like the big maps of the vehicles in Cold War. Yeah, probably. It's a visual novel game. It's on PlayStation. Best to play it blind if you do so. Well, I'd have to look into it. Pro, I love being a member for your content. I love your, I love you. I love being a member. I love your content. What's your favorite Call of Duty oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just losing my track of thought a little bit here. Well, I didn't agree with it, Manson. I personally think that it was stupid. But I guess I'll be going here, guys. Thank you guys for, Genghis Khan, I could probably talk about him in the future. I've actually talked about him before in his conquest. He was a very smart man. He was a very ruthless guy, too. He was not a good man, but he was very smart in his conquests, too. He was tactical-wise. When it came to military strategy, he was very smart. He was very ruthless and very bad in a lot of the other stuff that he did, but he was very smart when it came to fighting battles. Thoughts on Gaddafi and the U.S. responsible for the fall of Libya? Thank you, Logan, for the super chat. What I'll say about that is that, you know, Gaddafi was not a good man. He was a ruthless guy. Gaddafi was also responsible for the Pan Am Flight 103. It was a flight that he bombed, he destroyed. He killed a lot of civilians with that. But what I will say is that Libya today is a giant mess. Like, the country has been in a state of civil war for the past 10 years and has two governments. It's two governments. Like, there's two presidents in Libya. It's a very unstable country. It's a very unsafe country today. That's what I'll say most about Libya. It's a very, very unstable state today. It's a very, very unstable, very unsafe country to go to. It's been in civil war for 10 years, and the civil war is not going to end anytime soon in Libya, too. I love the Chinatown Wars playthrough. Thank you, Sean. Hey, Pro, when you do Cayo Perico, press the right in the D-pad, then you can use the rebreather. Yeah. Well, thank you, Moon, for telling me about that. I will, I guess we'll be leaving off here, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me, and, tomorrow I will have a video on the update on GT Online. Tomorrow I'll have a video talking about the update and some things that I want to see in this update, like just listing off things I want to see. So, like, check that out tomorrow. And if you like my video tomorrow, post it on Rockstar's feedback page, the video I post tomorrow, because maybe Rockstar will still change some things, hopefully. So thank you guys. GD, let me see here. Did I see what you said before? Let me see, GD. You changed your name, but what is your new name, GD? What's the update? June 13th. Sure, Raphael, that's true, but it does help, though. That's the thing. Where's Crime Boss? Crime Boss is, Crime Boss is like 2 or 3 more parts. I'm really sorry. I've been delayed for like a week on that. I'm sorry about that. I will have it up soon. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Oh, okay. I'll probably add you later on. GD. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was awesome. We had a fun stream today. And hopefully this update is good. We'll still have another stream before the update comes out, and check out my GTA Online video tomorrow. And then we're gonna actually have a birthday stream. What day is June 7th? That's my birthday. June 7th, Wednesday. I wanted to stream GTA 4 on my birthday, since that's my favorite GTA game. Would you guys like to see a GTA 4 stream on Wednesday? Because that was the one that I wanted to stream. Okay. Okay, we'll do GTA 4 then. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I will see you guys on the next one. If you guys enjoyed the stream, do drop a like, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day.